You know what? You were fantastic. The time has come for the parting of ways, the last Doctor Who episode to feature Christopher Eccleston as the Doctor. And I'll tell you, going back through Series 1 again, it makes me miss him quite a bit. He was really good. Even when episodes weren't always great, he was pretty much always spot on. There was only one or two times that things felt slightly off with him, but for the most part, he was there. And knowing now, even though a lot of the details still haven't really been made public or have been talked about, knowing that at the very least, the vibe has been made clear that he wasn't happy on set and in the shooting conditions that he was in, that he still gave the performance that he did. Props to the guy. Absolutely. I know there are some Doctor Who fans who have an axe to grind with him because they feel like he has kind of badmouthed the show or doesn't honor the legacy, in the way that some fans would like. But I look at the guy's output and I'd say I think his work speaks for itself, and I think he did a phenomenal job. But let's talk about this last episode. So we're coming off of Bad Wolf, an episode that I do not like at all, really. So coming off of that, it was always going to be rough going, coming in off the back of that. But we've got all these Daleks to deal with now. Threat has been established, but we also get the Dalek Emperor. I actually really, 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 really like the Dalek Emperor. First of all, I love the voice. Because, the Dalek voice is iconic, but it's also oftentimes kind of high-pitched, and so to get this deep, reverberating rumble from the Dalek Emperor, oh, God, I love it. And while I do enjoy later iterations of the Dalek Supreme, the various ones we've seen, who have usually gotten a deeper voice a bit like that, there's something about that first time with that Emperor. It's like, whoa, man. And the whole idea is actually quite interesting, that in his preservation and rebuilding of the Daleks, that what he's created is a little new and a little different, because there's this whole element of himself as a god, and there's now a self-loathing to the Daleks because they know somewhere deep down in the back of their minds that they originated as cells from human beings, which, that's not Dalek, that's not pure, that's going to bring a level of self-hatred. And in a way, it makes me a little bit sad that this batch of Daleks was pretty much gone. No, not pretty much, is. They're gone at the end of this. And I feel like there was some mileage to be gotten out of digging into how they are new and different and distinct from the Daleks that the Doctor was actually fighting during the Time War, or that we've seen appear previously. And I kind of wish they'd done that. They didn't, road not traveled. But I like that. That all works for me. The whole thing, okay, so the whole Bad Wolf thing is something I have gone back and forth and been kind of mixed on. So I feel this is very much, a left field, wait what, ending, and resolution. Now I know that seeds were planted for this, because we had the Bad Wolf recurring across the series, and we established the heart of the TARDIS in Boomtown. But at the same time, I don't think there's any... I still think it's a big leap from the things that were established to what we got. We just had a term showing up that was not really pointed out by the show until 2 episodes prior to this. And we had the heart of the TARDIS, something not established again until 2 episodes prior to this, which there was nothing about Boomtown would make you think, oh, Rose will be able to absorb that and save the day somehow. Now, I think better on it now, partially because, honestly, thanks to Moffat, because one of the things I really love about Day of the Doctor is the Bad Wolf entity, as we see it there, played again by Billie Piper. And I really like sort of establishing this as not just something created in the moment by this fusion of the time vortex into Rose, but something that actually exists possibly in a way outside of time and space that inhabited her for a little bit. I like that idea better, and that is basically a retcon from Moffat, and honestly, it does kind of improve my opinion about this. What in some of the supporting cast, what happens with Linda, I think is quite sad, and I think the sadness for that is built too nicely. I think they did a good job endearing her quickly and making her death feel like a legitimate loss in some way. And Jackie and Mickey Jackie especially, this is one of her better appearances, especially early on. Series 1, she grated on me a bit. So this is one of her better appearances, and I do quite like the way that Rose connects with her, bringing up Pete and her having been the girl who was there when he was dying, and there was someone there with him. And I like how, Jackie basically needs to leave and process that, and comes back and makes the extra effort to help. I do think the goodbyes from the Doctor, because he effectively gets 2, I think those are the highlights, and those are touching moments. Firstly, when he with the hologram, saying that things went bad, you're gonna live, I'm probably not, have a good life, live a good life for me. And this is also one of the few times where I feel like the whole element of companions and how do you live a normal life after traveling with the Doctor, I feel like this is one of the few times that plays well. It's a concept that I don't think is a bad idea, and I think it plays an interesting part here, and there's some ideas worth exploring there, and it works especially well with Rose given how young she is, because she's basically had her mind blown at a young age, and I was like, well, what am I supposed to do now? Like, that makes a lot of sense to me. I don't like that later on they'll kind of retcon and imply that it's like this for every companion when they start traveling with the Doctor, because they end up implying that with Sarah Jane later on when she gets reintroduced into the show, and they kind of, with the way Martha came back, it kind of seems like a bit of a similar thing. And I like this idea. I don't like this idea being blanketed across the companions as a whole, which I feel like in some ways the show kind of did. But taking it in isolation, it's well done here. And certainly as a motivator for pushing Rose to do the most extreme thing that she can think of to try and get back. That all works. And then there's the Doctor's proper goodbye to her. At the end, and I really like this regeneration. One of these days I'm gonna rank the regenerations. I just need to figure out if I'm gonna rank the regeneration moments or regeneration stories. I need to figure out how I'm gonna do that. But I do like this regeneration a lot. It hits the note of giving him a farewell, of acknowledging the loss to Rose and to us as an audience, without getting really self-indulgent with it, which the series kind of has since this. I think this is the right amount of time. He knows what's going on. He tries to make light of it. He tries to explain it, and then it's just gonna happen. So I like all that, and I think that works well. I didn't think much on it one way or the other on first viewing, but it does bother me a little bit that the way he absorbs the time vortex out of Rose is through a kiss. I don't love that. Like, I don't think it's necessary. Like, this becomes one of those things where yes, they justify it in terms of like, okay, well, that's where it's gonna come from. He connects with her that way. So like you can say, oh, but it's not a romantic kiss because time vortex absorption. But I wish they had done it literally any other way. Like stare into her eyes and have it go into his eyes. It's just something. I don't love that it's this tender kiss, partly because with this Doctor specifically, I've said this before, I've never gotten that vibe off him and Rose. Like, especially not from him to her. Which, you know, being that he's the one that initiates this kiss, it's a weird moment. I don't have a problem with logistically what's going on in the scene. I just don't like the manner in which it happens. I don't think it helps. I don't think it adds anything, really. So, you know, I've got little nitpicks like that. And you know, there is a suddenness to, you know, the way Rose just dissolves all the Daleks that, you know, and people can debate how much of a Deus Ex Machina this is or isn't because, you know, the elements are set up to some degree ahead of time. But what I don't like about it is how it removes so many of the consequences of what came and removes so many of them. I don't like how clean it makes it. Like, yes, it leads to a regeneration, but, you know, the thing that bugs me about a fair number of the series finales for modern era Doctor Who is how they ultimately resolve by undoing whatever the threat was, like completely undoing it. In this case, you know, the Daleks now, these Daleks literally no longer exist. So, you know, there's that, and I won't go into it with the other stuff, but I think it happens with a fair number of them. They'll like single out like a specific thing, like, oh, well, it'll have consequences to this character. Like, okay, but if you're gonna have personal stakes and personal consequences, why do you have to blow up the threat so big that the only way to resolve it without completely rewriting the entire way the show is gonna work moving forward is to erase it? Like, if you're gonna have personal stakes, then have a slightly smaller scale threat. Then it doesn't need to be that big if your true story is here. I don't know. I don't even know if I'm expressing that correctly. Again, it's not necessarily a problem with this episode, but I'm getting ahead of myself because it's a pattern that I have a problem with in Doctor Who, because, you know, this and then Doomsday, oh, these Cybermen came through, oh, don't worry, now they're all gone. Or in Last of the Time Lords, oh, these things invaded Earth, oh, don't worry, they're now completely gone and the entire year they took over the world is erased from history. It never happened. You know, all this stuff just gets completely undone, and it's hard for me to get invested in the world-ending stakes when there are no real lasting consequences on a global scale. If you're going to threaten the world, it should affect the world. And ultimately, if it doesn't, maybe you didn't need to threaten the world. You only needed to threaten the characters that you actually had get impacted. And the characters do get impacted. Obviously, we'll pick up with Jack later on down the line to see how things rolled out for him. But Rose has now got to contend with a new Doctor. The Doctor himself just regenerated. So, you know, there are consequences. I just don't know if it was necessary to scale up the threat as big as it did. And I do think in some ways it contributes to the weakening of the Daleks as a threat because, you know, again, you can justify it with the nature of what the Bad Wolf is and what it's capable of, as to how she defeated them so easily. But that's still a fleet of Daleks effectively wiped out with like a Thanos snap. So I think long term it probably still caused some issues. But I'm starting to bring in the baggage of what I know become recurring things across the show, narrowing it down to this. This is really good. This is a really good, solid farewell to this Doctor. Like to the point that I don't even mind that it's located on a reused set, because apparently they had to milk Satellite 5 to absolute death. So, yeah, for as much as I've now spent complaining and going, yeah, but I do really like this. Eccleston nails it. Rose sells the heck out of it. And I like the Dalek Emperor quite a bit. I think he's inherently highly intimidating. So, the parting of ways. What are your thoughts on it? Whatever they are, drop something down in the comments. Let's talk about it. A whole bunch of stuff you can do because there's buttons and there's links, including a link to my Patreon if you feel generous. If you don't worry about it. There's other links you can check out. But if you don't even want to do that, don't sweat it, because at the end of the day, you are the council. I just run the meetings. And until next time, this council is adjourned.